Sneaker Gears, my name is Levi, and welcome to my third try at attempting to do a Kyrie 5 review. Now, the first two, obviously, I have not published. I have an editing floor, and I pretty much just left them. And the reason for that is there's a lot of combinations and verses, so I really wanted to make this an episode of not just the Kyrie 5, but do it compared to the Dame 5, as well as the Why Not 2 for the 2019, as all three are really top performers. So let's get right into it. All right, so the Kyrie 5 is the flagship that we're talking about in this video. That doesn't mean it's the best, but we'll get into that. But let's start off by talking about the fit. The Kyrie 5 is possibly the best fitting Kyrie to date. I've had all of them, the lows, everything I want to talk about. This is an awesome fit. Now, if you're a wide footer, you still want to go up that half size just because they do technically run a little bit narrow, but I've always been a 13 and I'm fine with that. My true size would actually be, say, a 12 and a half, which I'm able to do in the Why Not 2s, but a 13 in this just fits awesome. I would almost say they might run a little small, but honestly, if you owned any Kyries, they fit like a Kyrie. Now, one thing to note, if you have a high instep, depending on where the height of your foot is, so a lot of people like to think, oh, I have a fat foot. If your instep is high back here, which mine is, towards your ankle, you're going to be fine. It's a traditional tongue, traditional lacing system. But if you have a wider foot over here where your instep is kind of large, or people consider themselves having a big foot or what have you, the way this wraps around, I really liken this to the Why Not 1. So the Why Not 1 had a very similar shroud, but there was no adjustment. This does allow you to adjust it to a point, but depending on foot size, those are the only folks I would say you might have a tough time getting the shoe on. Other than that, even if you're a wide footer or you have a high instep, go up that half size, you're going to be just fine. Everyone else, I think just go true to size, but the Kyrie is so popular. Whatever you've worn before, you're going to be comfortable in this one, and I think maybe even that much better. All right, so the Why Not 2. This guy is one of my, if not my, shoe of the year so far. So I'll have other updates coming out with some of the other shoes, and you guys may say other things. Other reviewers really like the Kyrie 5 and the Dame 5, and I'll kind of go over that, which is why I wanted to have this review. But this shoe, again, fits true to size. I was able to do a 12 and a half perfectly. This show I was able to get on a pretty good deal, so I did a 13, and I'm still able to torque it down where I'm just fine. Whether you want to go true to size, I don't think you have to go up half a size, but what's nice about this, even if you have a narrow foot, the way the enclosures work here on the side, the way this pulls you back in, the lockdown on this is incredible. This is easily one of the best fitting shoes this year. The only other shoes that are fitting this good that I really enjoyed are also going to be your LeBron 16 low. That fits incredible. So this is definitely tops on this list, but that's for myself and for wide footers. Let's get into the Dame 5. All right, the Dame 5 is essentially gonna fit a lot of people really well, and this is why a lot of folks had this as their number one shoe. This is a great shoe, I think, for majority of people, and I'm sorry to say it's just not for me, at least not quite yet, and that's because I have a wide foot. Obviously, you guys have seen this channel. If you have a wide foot in your toe box, I think you're going to be fine. This material is pretty movable. You're going to be just quick. You're okay with it. I have a wide midfoot, so this bar right here doesn't hurt. I don't want to say that, but between that bar and then the way the midsole rises up here, it's just not comfortable. It's taken a while. I've worn this shoe for easily over probably 12 hours now, 12 to 13 hours, and it is starting to break in. It does feel decent, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't quite fit me. So if you have a wide midfoot, this is not for you, and unfortunately, that's where I fall into. Everyone else, you should like this shoe. Now, it does run a bit long, so unfortunately, I had to go with a size 13 to accommodate my width. And the fact that it runs long, it just feels really awkward to fit on my foot. If you have a normal foot size, you're going to be fine. If you have a high instep, you're going to be fine. And if you have a wide toe box, again, you're going to be fine. So this is going to fit a lot of people. And throughout the inner, from this whole side and this whole side, as well as the entire ankle collar, there's a bunch of little pillows. So you're able to torque this down, and that goes in the support. But the lockdown on this and the fit, again, is really nice, I think, for majority of people. Just unfortunately, not for me. All right, talking about the materials, we're going to stay with the Dame 5 and kind of work our way backwards. This is a $115 shoe, so this is not inexpensive. This is one of the least expensive signature shoes for a star athlete in Damian Lillard. And for $115, the materials are lackluster. They are cheap, they feel cheap, they look cheap. This is just completely all felt. And although this looks beautiful, I really like the way the looks of this shoe. The materials, and you guys can just take a look here. It looks cheap, it feels cheap. It does move with your foot, but it doesn't feel like anything more than just a really thin fuse covered with felt. So the Black Panther version's coming out. I'm not sure the release date on that. Maybe I can put that in the comments below there. They look okay, and those materials look a little bit better, but every model released so far has felt really cheap. Even the leather versions for the Chinese was a synthetic leather that a lot of folks didn't really speak highly of and didn't even look that great either. So materials on this are definitely a step below. I don't know if they're worth $115, but that's probably the one and only knock I can say against this shoe. As for the materials on the Kyrie 5, it's not as much of a transgressor as the Dame 5, but for $130, this is $15 more. You start stepping up. This is definitely a more expensive shoe. It doesn't feel like it's quite worth that, especially when they came from the Kyrie 4 that used the entire back half of the shoe that had multiple different materials. Some were raw, some were synthetic, but it did give it a quality feel, and it was a step up from what they did the Kyrie 3. So this definitely feels like a step back in the quality of materials, but the construction of how they feel in your foot is still really nice. It's a very soft, maneuverable, it molds to your foot well. There's nothing crispy or plastic, so it does feel nice. I was just expecting a little bit more for $130, and the main reason for that is because of this guy. This is $125, so $5 less, and the materials just feel that much better. Now, even the forefoot area, which has kind of a similar material to the Kyrie 5, still feels softer and stronger, but that doesn't talk about the rest of the shoe and the other 5 or 6 different materials they have going on here. So for $125, this is kind of a standard on what you're expecting, especially at that price point, which blows away for $10 more of the Dame 5. All right, working our way down to support, and we'll kind of work our way backwards again. The Why Not 2, I'm going to kind of say has the absolute most support. This is one of the most supportive shoes on the market right now, between the double lockdown materials in the heel to bring you back, to the additional strap along with the laces to really pull you down, to the additional materials here in the toe that really allow you to pull in and just make sure you have that additional lateral support. The midsole rises up on both sides to give you support for any kind of lateral containment, as well as you have almost 3 different heel cups. So this shoe feels really secure. I even did some tests kind of landing on people's foot, putting some shoes, and the way the shoe is allowed to move freely because it's decoupled really gives you the best chance at not getting injured. Now, if you land on someone's foot, that sucks. Things are going to happen, but this is the most supportive shoe in the market. So where do the other two line up? Well, not surprising, the second most supportive and probably the most supportive shoe, especially in Adidas's lineup, is the Dame 5. Between the fit and the lockdown with those pillows, the different materials that really allow you to pull back into the heel cup, to having a pretty rigid heel cup that works its way probably halfway up the shoe here. So you're really working your way all the way up to where the 3 stripes start. You really feel locked in. The midsole on the medial side and then this plastic shank on the lateral side really allow you to feel cupped into the shoe for any lateral containment. And on top of that, very similar to what happened in the Why Not 1, you're getting a flat base that is a very wide base, which surprisingly it's not a wide shoe. So it is just an incredibly solid shoe where you feel very stable. Not to mention, just like you had full length zoom, for consistency, this is full length bounce. So it's something where you just feel very locked in, very stable. Again, if this fit me, this shoe would be a lot higher in my rankings, how I feel about it. But I definitely want to make sure I convey that this is still an excellent shoe. All right, last, and just on this comparison, is the Kyrie 5. And that does not mean this is a lack of support. This is actually a really supportive shoe and strikes a really nice balance for a majority of players that are out there. Actually, the reason I did this comparison is for a couple reasons, but starting off with the first reason, the Kyrie 5 is really the successor to the Why Not 1. So if you guys are looking at these shoes, they both have a shroud covering over, although this one is non-movable, this one is adjustable. They both have exaggerated heel cups, but not nearly as much as this one. And the problem I have, especially with this model and the Chinese New Year one, the heel cup used on these two specific models are not the solid heel cup you're getting on the rest of the lineup, and that does mean you are getting a slightly less supportive shoe than you would on the rest of the Kyrie 5 lineup. But you have that protective shroud that's really pulling you in, locking you in. You have larger heel cups than the majority of the shoes on the market, and whereas this had a full-length zoom, this has essentially a full-length zoom halfway to the shoe. So it's not just a 4-foot zoom, but it is very similar. So let me stick to support and we'll work our way to comfort really quick here. But support wise, this is giving you the least rounded outsole that Kyrie's had since the Kyrie 1. So it's not quite as flat and wide of a base as you're getting on the Why Not 1, but it is going to be much more flat and much more consistent than what Kyrie's line has been in the past. So this is something that even if you're a quick guard, you're going to be able to still have a little bit of rounded edges. But if you're a shooter or you want something a little more planted, I think this is still doing a much better job in years past. Now, I like the rounded edges. I like that free flowing, which is why I like the Why Not 2. But I think, again, this is a better balance for majority of the players in the market. All right, down to the cushion, and obviously I already teased that. This is using a full 4-foot zoom turbo setup that is articulated. It is edge to edge and pretty much the entire 4-foot, and honestly feels just like the Why Not 1. I was actually able to play in both of these shoes, literally 1 foot on the other, and the only difference was the traction. You really felt almost the same. So you're getting a majority of what you got in the Why Not 1, except refined. So if they actually did a Why Not 2 based on what the Why Not 1 performed well in, that's what this is. So if you really liked the Kyrie 4, that's what the Dame 5 is. So the Dame 5 is going to give you the most court feel out of the bunch, whereas the Kyrie 5 has a little bit more cushion and is a little more balanced, so you still feel quick. This is using full length bounce, so this is going to be still a little bit more bouncy and cushioned than the cushion on the Kyrie 4, but it's full length, it's consistent, you're getting a lot more court feel, and honestly, if you are a fan of the Kyrie 4, this is probably more a logical step to go with, where you are remaining that court feel, you're getting much better traction, and we'll get to that in a second, than you are in the Kyrie 5, and you're just getting a lot more support, so I think this is more of an evolution to that shoe versus where they took the Kyrie 5. And last, but first place, we have the Why Not 2, and it just depends what you're looking for. So all three of these are actually really good shoes that could fit in one person's lineup. This is a max cushion setup. You have a large volume 4-foot zoom with injected Phylon, both which are bouncy and then more bouncy, and then with the decoupled midsole, really feels like the shoe is pushing you forward. This shoe is meant to move and stay moving fast, making cuts, sprinting, going on fast breaks. This is such a fun shoe to play in. And how I rank shoes a lot of times is when I break them back out as I'm doing testing, how much do I enjoy them again? And every time I put the shoe on, it just shocks me. It is awesome. Now, this is not a great successor to the Why Not 1. If you love the Why Not 1, this really is a very different shoe. As I said, the Kyrie 5 is going to be a much more logical step where you might enjoy that more. This is actually the successor from the Jordan 28, Jordan 29, Jordan 30, and then the Why Not 2. This falls right in that line. It looks like it, but it plays like them, but better in every facet. So this is more of a max cushion setup. Your Kyrie 5 is more of a balanced setup where you have a little bit of cushion, more court feel, and your Dame 5 is going to be more towards your court feel, but still has plenty of impact protection. Last is traction, and this is what took a while for the Kyrie 5 for me. I've had multiple versions of the Kyrie 5, and I've had versions that have been absolutely horrible, and I've had versions that have been pretty good. So this reminds me a lot of what you're getting on the new KD12 on the high end. So the KD12 is really good traction, but it's not great. This is really good traction, but it's not great. But the problem is, depending which model you get, you may have less support, like in the Chinese New Year or the Black History Months. Depending which colorway you get, you may have less traction than maybe what you were expecting. Like Rockets, and I had the taco versions, so there's a couple colorways you just have to be careful about. So it's take it with a grain of salt if you're going to get great traction with Kyrie 5. The Why Not 2s are literally a hair below some of the best traction ever. This is phenomenal traction, one of the best on the market. Is this on the level of your Jordan 28s and your Kobe 9s and some of the highest that have been out there? Almost. It's that good. Now, it's not at that level, but it's almost there. No complaints whatsoever. No one who's going to try on this shoe is going to say the traction let them down. And finally, the Dame 5 traction. Now, on every other colorway, which has been solid or maybe translucent, I've heard nothing but positive reviews. This took me probably 10 hours of breaking before the traction started to get really good. And even then, there's some hit and misses where if you see the Adidas logo right here, that's a smooth spot that's not quite grabbing. So the traction on this specific model, because this is the only one with a completely translucent or clear colorway, this has been really good and okay. It's been both. So I definitely am considering selling these. If you guys have some interest in that, I'll clean them up, put a shoe tree in them. Shoot me an offer, guys. This is size 13. I don't even think this colorway is out yet, but I'm thinking of leaning towards getting that Black Panther version just because that has a solid traction outsole. So I don't want to have a verdict on the traction on this yet, other than it's been really good. And on bad days, it's still been good. So I would rank this probably second still compared to the Kyrie 5, but just as a heads up, and I would give you notice, every other reviewer and any person I've talked to has had great success with it. All right, so wrapping it up, you can see a lot of cross similarities between these shoes and what you should get. If you're a fan of the Why Not 1, the Kyrie 5 is a really logical and probably next step upgrade for you. If you're a fan of the Kyrie 4, maybe switching over to Adidas camp and getting a 3 stripes in the Dame 5. Now, if you like the Dame 5, but you're like me and you have a wide foot in the middle, the Harden 3 is actually a really nice option. Now, you're not spending much more, but at the same time, a lot of these are on sale, so you're able to get them for almost the same price. This is going to give you a little bit better materials. This is much more wide foot friendly, and the boost on this is a lot thinner and plays really, really similar. As opposed to getting a thicker slab of bounce, you're getting a slimmer slab of boost. This is just a low top. So if you have an issue with the low top, again, I can't help you with that. So if you're a wide footer that wants a mid top with a lot of support, Adidas doesn't have you covered. Now, I will have a full Adidas lineup where I can talk about all of those, but this is going to be maybe an alternative if you wanted to get the Dame 5 or you wanted the low top, or you like it, but you need something that's going to be more accommodating for your wide foot. And that brings us to the Why Not 2, which almost doesn't fit into any of this. This is a max cushion shoe with crazy traction, crazy support, and this is going to line up closer to your LeBron 16 low, which is going to be very comparable. This is going to be closer in full length in that max cushion to your KD 12, and I'll definitely have a review going through those 3 shoes as far as having some of the best max cushion setups out there. But this is definitely a different shoe than either one of these. Between the decoupled midsole, the way too much support at certain times, and the traction that is just unbelievable, this is maybe too much shoe for a lot of people. But at the same time, I've talked to a lot of the guys at the Chicago Nike Town, and this is a shoe they recommend to almost anybody with a lot of success, and they're selling a lot of these for any real hooper out there. If you don't like the style, you don't like the colorway, okay, I get that, but as performance, this is an awesome shoe. Now, if you're looking for more of a balance, not so much cushion, the Kyrie 5 does a great job. It feels more like a little brother to this, but again, it's different take. So you're getting a little bit less support, a little bit less cushion, traction's not as aggressive, and at $130 you're spending $5 more, which is why it's kind of a weird pricing structure. Maybe because Kyrie just has more fans than Russell Westbrook, I don't know. But the Kyrie 5 you are able to get on sale just starting recently with them going on discount on certain colorways. Now, finally, the Dame 5 is probably the best Dame to date, is the best cushion I have felt to date. The traction overall is still going to be really good for almost every colorway, and the support is awesome. You feel really locked in. I just wish my foot fit better, and that's just a personal take. So all great shoes, different players, different styles of play. So whether you're a man or a woman out there, these are all 3 great options in a lineup for both Nike, Jordan, and Adidas. If you guys have any comments or questions, put them down below. I do try to respond to everybody. If you want me to do more of a direct comparison, or you have other shoes you want me to do, let me know. But this is one I've been excited to do, and hopefully I didn't make it too long there. Guys, thank you for sticking with me. Really appreciate you, and I'll come at you later.